Welcome to today's Explainer. Grab a seat and get ready because we are about to jump headfirst into one of the most famous, but honestly, most misunderstood figures in all of human history. Today, we're deconstructing the myth of Pegasus. We're going to examine the biological, historical, and cultural evolution of this legendary winged horse. We're going to strip away all that modern fairy dust to reveal a creature born of blood, shaped by ancient politics, and used as a really profound psychological and moral symbol for thousands of years.
Okay, let's take a quick look at the syllabus for today. We've got Section 1, Biology of a Myth. Section 2, Debating the Linguistic Origins. Section 3, Corinth and Political Power. Section 4, Evolution of a Symbol. Section 5, Global Winged Horse Archetypes. And finally, Section 6, Ancient Canon versus Modern Media.
All right, starting right off with Section 1, Biology of a Myth, the Physics of Flight.
So, before we even touch the ancient poetry or look at the pottery, we've got to ground ourselves in some harsh biological realities. I want to pose: could a winged horse actually exist in nature? It's a great baseline to establish. Now, obviously, we inherently know it's a myth, but applying strict scientific constraints reveals exactly why a creature like this is biologically impossible. And honestly, that makes the human invention of it even more fascinating.
And this brilliantly illustrates the crux of the problem. On the left side, we have equine biology. Your typical horse weighs somewhere between 450 and 550 kilograms. They have these incredibly dense, solid bones that evolution engineered specifically to absorb the massive shock of running on the ground. But on the right, look at avian biology. Birds achieve flight because they have hollow, pneumatized bones, which gives them this extremely optimized weight-to-lift ratio. A horse's cardiovascular and muscular systems are built for long-distance terrestrial endurance, not the completely massive metabolic demands of powered flight.
To really put that into perspective, just look at this number, 15 to 20 square meters. Based on standard aerodynamic lift equations, that is the absolute minimum wing surface area you would need just to lift a mass of 500 kilograms. That is roughly 3 to 4 times the wingspan of a wandering albatross, which is literally the largest flying bird on Earth. Wings of that size would require pectoral muscles so enormous that they would completely break the anatomical constraints of a horse's body. Picture a horse with the chest of an absolute bodybuilder. It would be structurally unsupportable on the ground. So a biological Pegasus wouldn't just be unable to fly, it wouldn't even be able to walk.
Moving on to Section 2, Debating the Linguistic Origins. Where did Pegasus actually come from?
Okay, so if science tells us there is absolutely no way Pegasus could exist, we have to look to cognitive psychology and linguistics to figure out why early humans invented such an aerodynamically impossible creature in the first place. The answer lies in this amazing framework called conceptual blending. It's this fundamental cognitive operation where humans take two familiar categories, in this case the raw instinctual power of a horse and the spiritual transcendence of a bird, and they just blend them together. Through animistic thinking, our ancestors extended the very real, impressive capabilities of a galloping horse to supernatural degrees. Pegasus was essentially conceptualized to be a bridge connecting the earthly realm with the divine sky.
But what about the name itself? Well, as a proper, we need to impartially examine this massive, ongoing debate among scholars regarding where the word Pegasus actually comes from. On one side, you have the traditional Greek origin. The poet Hesiod claimed the name derived from the Greek word pege, meaning spring, because Pegasus was supposedly born near the springs of Oceanus. But since about the 1950s, linguists have been pushing a Luwian, or Anatolian origin. They argue the name actually derives from Pihasha Sheshi. That's a Bronze Age epithet for the Anatolian storm god, which means of lightning. It's fascinating because while the Greek origin links Pegasus to terrestrial water springs, the Luwian origin perfectly explains his original role as a personification of violent atmospheric storms, acting as Zeus's literal thunderbolt bearer. Both theories are incredibly compelling, and the academic consensus is still totally divided.
Let's dive into Section 3, Corinth and Political Power. The first corporate logo. You see, myths don't just live in the minds of poets, they're actively wielded by states. Let's take a quick digital gallery tour through the archaeological record to see exactly how the ancient city-state of Corinth utilized this terrifying myth as a tool for political and economic dominance. By the mid-7th century BCE, we start seeing the winged horse popping up on Corinthian pottery. But the real game changer happens around 550 BCE. That's when Pegasus is officially standardized on Corinthian silver stater coins, complete with the archaic letter kappa right beneath the horse. By the Hellenistic period, hundreds of years later, this iconography was literally everywhere,
showing up in grand works like the magnificent Rhodes mosaic.
So why was this coin such a huge deal? Because mass-producing this specific image essentially turned Pegasus into the ancient world's very first corporate logo. It standardized their civic identity. For Corinth, Pegasus symbolized transcendent speed, power, and divine favor. And because the hero who tamed Pegasus, Bellerophon, was a Corinthian himself, the horse reinforced the city's heroic pedigree. As these coins flooded the Mediterranean, they projected Corinth's massive maritime and commercial influence everywhere. The logo was so successful, in fact, that powerful Corinthian colonies like Syracuse started minting their own imitations. Talk about brand recognition.
Which brings us to Section 4, Evolution of a Symbol, from Thunderbolt to Muse.
If we look closely at the literary record, we can actually trace how the character of Pegasus was culturally domesticated over the centuries. He shifts from a terrifying monster to a symbol of the arts in 3 distinct steps. Step 1, back in the Archaic period, Pegasus is a divine thunderbolt bearer, a violent agent born of blood. Step 2, in the Classical period, he becomes a hero's steed. The myth of Bellerophon gets attached to the horse, turning Pegasus into a divine helper. And finally, Step 3, during the Hellenistic and Roman periods, Pegasus becomes associated with the Hippocrene spring on Mount Helicon, completely transforming into a peaceful muse of poetic inspiration.
To prove just how wild that original Step 1 was, let's look at the foundational text itself, Hesiod's Theogony, written around 700 BCE. When the hero Perseus decapitated the Gorgon Medusa, Pegasus burst directly out of her severed neck, literally born from her blood. Hesiod writes, Pegasus, soaring, left the earth, and carries the thunder and lightning for Zeus of the councils. In his absolute earliest conception, Pegasus wasn't a cute pet. He was a weapon of mass destruction sitting right at the intersection of the dark chthonic underworld and the highest Olympian power.
So the crucial point here is understanding how this violent creature was later used to teach morality in Step 2. Eventually, the Corinthian hero Bellerophon tamed Pegasus. Together, they slew that impossible monster, the Chimera, but Bellerophon's ego just grew way too large. He actually believed he deserved to live up there with the gods and attempted to ride Pegasus all the way up to Mount Olympus. Well, Zeus wasn't having it. He sent a gadfly to sting Pegasus, causing the horse to buck, which threw Bellerophon all the way back down to earth to live out his days in misery. This was a profound, canonical warning against hubris, the extreme, fatal danger of mortals presuming they are equal to the gods.
Moving on to Section 5, Global Winged Horse Archetypes, a shared imagination?
Now what's really interesting about this slide is we have to ask, was Greece the only place to dream up a flying horse? Not at all. Multiple, completely distinct cultures independently developed this same archetype. While the Greek Pegasus is our primary reference point, look over at Norse mythology. They have Haffarpnir, the winged steed of the goddess Gaina. Islamic tradition features Al-Barak, this incredible lightning-fast flying steed. We also see this in Hindu mythology with the flying, 7-headed horse Udshishravas, and in Chinese mythology with Tianma, the heavenly horse of imperial power. While they might share some incredibly ancient, distant Indo-European roots regarding storm gods, these are largely independent developments. It really shows this universal human desire to blend earthly speed with heavenly flight.
Finally, Section 6, Ancient Canon versus Modern Media, Grading Historical Accuracy.
All right, prep for your final exam, because we are going to aggressively contrast the historically accurate myth we've just studied with the incredibly sanitized Disney-era versions widely accepted in pop culture today. The juxtaposition is just stark. The ancient canonical Pegasus was born from a decapitated Gorgon's blood. He was a single, unique, immortal individual, and he was exclusively ridden by Bellerophon. Now, compare that to modern media. Thanks to movies like Disney's Hercules, Pegasus is formed out of fluffy little clouds by Zeus, acting way more like a golden retriever with wings than a force of nature. He's often treated as an entire species of animal, people say a herd of Pegasi. And famously, but completely incorrectly, modern movies almost always show him being ridden by Perseus.
Let's just rapid-fire debunk these right now to lock it in. Claim: Pegasus was ridden by Perseus. False. Perseus killed Medusa, sure, but only Bellerophon ever rode the horse. Claim: created by Zeus from clouds. False. He burst from Medusa's blood. Claim: Pegasus is a species of animal. False. He is a singular, named individual. Claim: he was killed by Zeus. False. He was totally immortal, survived Bellerophon's fall, and was eventually immortalized in the night sky as a constellation.
So I'm going to leave you, my class, with this final question to ponder. What does our domestication of this ancient, terrifying symbol of raw divine power into a harmless, cloud-born cartoon sidekick say about what our culture values today? We took a lightning-wielding, blood-borne monument to hubris, and we turned him into a pact. It's a fascinating journey for an archetype, and it really shows just how much our relationship with myth, nature, and the divine has changed over the millennia. Thank you so much for joining this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I will see you next time.